What's up, guys? Today we have another viewer loadout that we're going to be building, and this one is interesting because it isn't a super high budget, which means we have to get creative. Now, this one was submitted and requested by Roxinim, and they said $500 budget. They wanted it to be a Broken Heart theme, and the colors from that were red, black, grey, and requested high float if possible. Now, I don't know how much we'll get onto the Broken Heart style of theme, but that color theme we can definitely hit. So thank you for the request and suggestion, and let's get into it. Now, as you asked for high float, I took that mini for the knife and gloves as well, which means you are getting battle scar gloves. And because you said like black and red and broken hearted, I was like, you know what, we'll go blood pressures and we'll pair them with a crimson web, because then that as a red and black combo works pretty well. Now, this is $140 for the gloves, $175 for the knife, which means the combo is $315. I want to note that if you didn't mean you want battle scarred gloves as well, what you can do is pay like another $40 or so, and you'll be able to get these in field tested, and they will look super clean in comparison. For the CT agent, because Michael Cyphers from FBI Sniper, he is pretty much grey, and you did this grey as well, so I thought spending $6.88 on him made sense, and overall it pairs in quite nicely with the knife and the glove. Now, I did commit high float across the board. We have a battle scarred USP Cyrex here. This is just under $1, and you know what? The Cyrex isn't always my favourite skin, but I can really see where if you wanted to then craft on top of this and just really commit to that battle scar loadout, you could make something work. On the P250, I didn't really want to commit towards Mortos again, so I decided to go for the Cyber Shell here. Now, funny enough, when you go battle scarred in this, it actually changes the color along the top, and for like a 28-cent skin, for something a little bit different, I actually kind of like how it looks in idle with the gloves here. Now, we are going through CT first, if you couldn't tell, and the P250 and the Desert Eagle, you'll use both on T-side as well. So we have Desert Eagle Crimson Web here. This is just over $12 for Battle Scarred. Now, you can see how much of the skin really does wear away, but I mean, you want this high wear theme, so this is what we're going to rock with. Over in the Jewel Berettas, the high wear and the balance really just sort of changes the color a little bit, but I think when you inspect them here, it's almost like a perfect way of saying this is 70-cent battle scarred. You've got the roses on it, so you want that heartbreak play into it. I know you got like hearts and roses kind of go together a little bit, so maybe that's going to be a good fit. On the 5.7, Urban Hazard is without a doubt the best pick for this theme that you want. However, it only goes to field test it, and the float cap is 0.25 if I'm remembering correctly. So this is kind of like the most wear you'll be able to get. And then on the MP9, a Ruby Poison Dart, it just truly stripped way too much of the artwork off, so I decided to go for the Airlock here. This is $2.10 in Battle Scarred, and thankfully it's not like the Mecha Industries where it starts to go almost like an awful yellow color. And then the Bloodsport is always one that wears quite nicely. This is the MP7, $1.55 for Battle Scarred. You can see here most of the artwork stays, but it loses that shininess, and then means that actually paired in, this is pretty banging as a combination. Then over on the UMP, I decided to go for the Full Stop. This is $1.26 for Battle Scarred as well. On the preview, that middle section was pretty much fully worn away, and it's close enough to it here. Really, there's a bit of a limit, I think, on red UMP, so this is going to be the best shout. And then as we got onto the XM, I had to steer a little bit away from the red just because of lack of options, but you can get the black tie in Battle Scarred for 32 cents, and it basically just adds scuffs onto what is already a black and white skin, so value for money here is still pretty decent. And then rounding off these sort of filler skins, I think the Petroglyph in Well Worn, because it doesn't exist in Battle Scarred, for 75 cents is a really nice pick. I think even if the gloves were field tested, this would still fit in pretty nicely. And I will say now, this is not the prettiest loadout, but for the theme request, it is actually coming together pretty well. And time for the meat and potatoes of the rifles. Normally, for the Emperor 1S, when we suggested Night Terror, we go Battle Scarred, but Battle Scarred gets that purple vibe on it, and here we actually want to avoid it. Now, this one would be a little bit creepy for the Heartbreak vibes, but it is $1.71. If you want to spend a bit more budget, and this would take you over the $500 budget in total, which we'll see at the end, I think you could once again go for a Cyrex. Now, this is $28 for Battle Scarred. Both the USP and the M4 are capped. I think it's 0.55. So I picked out a 0.48 here, which would be reasonable to obtain and purchase without overpay. When I planned initially, I had the Evil Daimyo as the M4A4. However, as I got near the end, I realized there's actually budget for some upgrades. So I went for the Hellfire. This in Battle Scarred is just under $44. it takes an absolute beating. But what I like here is you still see most of the devil and then the devil's tail sticking through the end, which means the key artwork for me is still there, and then gives something you could craft around. And then I committed pretty heavily on the op, assuming that you will op a lot. But I did go battle scarred for the wildfire. Now this is just short of $50, so it's still literally it's 10% of your budget. It's a decent chunk to put in. However, the wildfire when battle scarred, the actual wildfire beast itself stays pretty much visible. Like you can see the core off of there, and then you're losing that red base around it. The scope also gets stripped down to this sort of like grey with red accent. And actually, with the agent, with the gloves, I'm liking how this looks. And then we do keep the battle scar commitment going here. We have the famous Valence. This is $3.20 in battle scarred, and overall it keeps a lot of the color on it. However, it does get the scuffs coming through. And then we have a really battle scarred radiation hazard. Now $2.55 for this, with how scuffed it is. Maybe you guys need to make the decision for me of whether or not this was a good idea, but the AUG really struggles. Now, we do change agent as we go to T-side, so it can be nice and sleeveless. It is $4.50, and my main thing here is it is sleeveless, but when you actually look at the agent, there are some elements of red there as well, but ultimately we're not breaking the bank. It's a little weird for me going for a candy apple and it not being Faction U. I can't lie. We've gone field tester here, which is the max you can get on it, and it's 50 cents. Honestly, I don't know if it's just worth going Faction U and having it clean and then crafting something on it instead, but if you want the wear and the highest slope possible, this would be it. I've got someone changed the background on me, but here we have the Tech 9. This is the only one that would literally fit. It's only black and red, already only red Tech 9 in the game, really. Isaac, $2.71 in battle scarred, and it holds up most of his design fairly well here. Then, if you do use a ZZ, and I have one equipped, so that's what I'm going to suggest for you guys to do as well, it's 32 cents for the red Astor in battle scarred. Now this is one of those skins where it's like a brightness skin, so like really it just becomes a bit more dull as you get lower down. I was wanting to avoid just using candy apple for ease. I decided to go pipe down here. Actually kind of interesting skin in battle scarred because it does just look like worn rusty pipes around the back, and then the ones in the middle still look pretty good. So for like 40 cents for this, I'm a big fan. And then, I wasn't expecting the Easter egg on it, but you can go Shallow Grave, which gets like this kind of bronzy finish on the core of it, and then it's still got that pinky red elsewhere. Now, if you wanted to, you could sack off the battle scarred, but it also saves you money, and it gets it down to $2. We really just commit on the battle scarred vibes here for the high roller. Again, also gets the budget down. It's down to $2 as well. And you can still see most of the artwork here, so I don't dislike it. We still struggle massively for a red option for the get ill. Yes, the tuxedo does exist. Maybe that should have been the play, but I want for a battle scar to connection just to try and force the red theme. Now, on the AK, you're going to go redline battle scarred. Now, this is a float cap as well, and you can go for a battle scar that still keeps most of the artwork, or a better amount of the artwork there, but this is a really high float battle scarred just to show you like how battered it could truly become. Now, this is where I want this to show like one of the potential crafts you could do, which would be putting mouse hollows on it. Now, I was initially going to suggest Paris, but looking at them here, the Copenhagen's actually come out really nicely, and it's making me think Copenhagen's might be a good sticker for me to craft with in the blue loadout moving forward. But it's not, people use these as the heart-shaped stickers. We don't really have heart-shaped stickers in CS outside of now being able to custom place stickers to make them look that way. So maybe we need an actual sticker that goes from a heart, and then whenever you scrape it, it goes broken heart. So then this theme would become absolutely perfect. Another cool one is the Bloodshot. Now, it is still $11 in battle scarred, which is pretty hefty, but again, it keeps a lot of the artwork. And the one thing I always say, when you shoot with it and it cocks it back, it's like pulling out the eyeball. However, you will see that a lot of the red is actually missing and worn when doing that as well with being battle scarred. And then finally, we end off with a Cyberforce SG, which is 5 cents. Also in battle scarred, but what it means is this total loadout cost comes out at $491. Now, if you wanted to upgrade to the Cyrex Emperor 1S from the Night Terror, you could do so, but you would then have to downgrade your Hellfire to the likes of the Evil Daimyo. Also, as mentioned, you could just sack off the Hellfire and get the Evil Daimyo and have budget for field-tested gloves, which do look considerably cleaner. Now, I know you wanted the high float, so I'll let you make that decision yourself, but they actually look really nice in field test. This is 0.27 float, and I think it does make the combos look better, honestly, because you're not having those brown spots on it. But Roxinim, it was your suggestion, so you can let me know what you prefer and what you think of it. And everyone else watching, if you guys want to put the thoughts in the comments down below, I'm super interested to know what you think of this very different but very nicely themed loadout. And if you're wondering about how you can get involved for this, every single month I do 2 loadouts for viewers. Now, I do announce it in the Discord, so make sure you're in there, but you can also sort of skip the queue for the request if you're a YouTube member. So while we're on this topic, a big thank you to YouTube members that continue to support the channel. It is greatly appreciated. We've ticked off their loadouts already. They were the first to be done. So if you want to skip the queue on the request, check out that join button down below and do so. But I'm going to end it there. I'm going to stop the waffle. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hit the like button if you do. Hit the subscribe button if you're new here. And I'm going to catch you in the next one. Good and bye.